Sports now with Danny Money of CanesInSight.com. He's an owner. He's a writer, podcast host, does everything over there at the website, and we're certainly glad he does. And he also finds about 10 minutes or so to spend with us on each and every Thursday. Danny, good morning. How you doing, buddy?
Good morning, fellas. How you doing?
Doing well, man. Let me ask you about Al Golden. And we talked a little bit about his camps, and one of the reasons you like to have these camps nowadays is you get a chance to see guys up close and personal, not just some highlight tape their coach and or some mentor may send you. You get a chance to talk to the kid, look at the kid, see if he's a guy that you may want on your football team. They've just gotten a commitment recently from a kid that was one of the tight ends at their camp, Jeremy Kerr, a tight end out of St. Petersburg. I look at his size. He's about 6'6", and they have him listed at about 245. Is that the size of a kid that stays at tight end, or is that the size of a kid who gets to college, bulks up by 30-some-odd pounds, and now you start talking about, maybe thinking about a position switch for him?
Under Randy Shannon, I might have said that's a future tackle. But with Al Golden, I really see him as a blocking tight end. We had an offensive tackle under Randy Shannon named Corey White, who when Al got here, shifted him over to tight end. He was about 270 pounds. And he would have played a major role in last year's team had he stayed healthy. Ended up blowing at his knee. Some people think he might have cost us a game or two just by replacing his superior blocking as a former offensive tackle with Chase Ford, who's really more of a receiving tight end. The Kansas State game comes to mind. Chase Ford had a lot of costly missed blocks in that game. Corey White was there as a pure blocking tight end and made a different situation on those 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s. So under Al Golden, I think this guy is a blocking tight end. I think it fills a need. I got a chance to see him at the camp. He can catch the ball. He's certainly not a Jeremy Shockey or Greg Olsen speed-wise, but he can block. He can get bigger. He could be probably about 6'5", 260 with that kind of mentality to be a blocking tight end.
Talking about putting together the Miami Hurricanes recruiting class for the 2013 signing period. Obviously, Hayes in the barn for this year's team, but looking forward, what are some other positions of need that you see the Hurricanes kind of trying to address over the next couple months as they lead up to that first Wednesday in February?
Well, it's going to be a small class, so I really think the goal is just getting impact players. You're only going to be signing about 16 to 17 kids, so you want talented kids regardless of the position. There was a huge class last year, filled some of the more gaping holes. For example, wide receiver, that was a big need. Ended up signing about 5 with another one coming in prep school next year. There's about, I want to say, 7 or 6 cornerbacks, depending on whether Deion Bush plays safety or cornerback. So those major needs were filled by last year's class. This year, I think they're just trying to get playmakers. Maybe defensive tackle might be the biggest need per se. They have a commitment from Keith Bryant from Delray Beach, 4-star prospect, offers from all over the SEC, all over the country. And they're after Janard Boswick from Treasure Coast, who is a talented defensive end, defensive tackle, and also Quay Bain from University School down here in South Florida. So they're in the hunt for some big-time defensive tackles. I think that'll be maybe the marquee position of the class. But overall, they just want impact players.
How about Coach D'Onofrio? That defense last year, game to game or quarter to quarter, felt like it was an up and down defense. Some weeks you thought that they looked like they were markedly improved. Other weeks you say, they took a big giant step back. As a whole, should we see a better defense this year out of Miami? And is that going to be the side of the ball that carries this team?
I think you'll see a better defense. You lose 2 great players with Olivier Vernon and Sean Spence. Sean Spence being an All-America caliber college player. Vernon not quite as productive at the college level, but certainly a talent and a guy who competed hard. So it's not going to be easy to replace those 2 guys. But I feel overall just the physicality of the defense from the corners. You have now guys that are not only talented guys, highly touted guys, but guys that like to stick their nose in there. Last year we had Lee Chambers, who was a converted running back, playing a ton of snaps at corner. He really wasn't ready for that position. Now we have young corners, but talented corners, guys who were highly sought after, who can run and who will stick their nose in there. So I think overall you're just going to see maybe a more talented group top to bottom, a younger group, but a group of guys that are more willing to stick their nose in there and tackle from the top down. You're still a little light on the defensive line. one of the big concerns last year, which remains this year, is you don't have that kind of length and size on the edge that you want. Coach DeOnfrio likes to switch it up. He runs a hybrid. He will show you some 3-4 looks, and that's tough to do when you don't have those big, tall, strong defensive ends. Your Richard Seymour types. Our defensive ends are mostly short guys, pass rushers. Chickalo being the exception. Anthony Chickalo, the freshman All-ACC player last year. But other than that, there's really not a lot of size at defensive end. I think that's the biggest weakness right now on that front.
Stepping away from on-the-field type things for the Hurricanes, discussion still continues about their future. A couple days ago coming out that they are reaffirming their commitment to the ACC despite rumors of some Big 12 interest and some other conference movements. Obviously, it's saying the things that they have to say at this point in time, but how much credence do you put into what's being said publicly by the Hurricane administration?
I believe it. I mean, they have nothing really to go on otherwise. They're really happy with the TV deal the ACC put together. And, if you ask Coach Golden about it, he'll say they're worried about getting themselves right, because simply by getting the University of Miami right, that'll do wonders for the ACC. And again, if Miami is right and Miami is winning, they're almost bigger than their conference. So the number one concern with the school, with the program, is just getting themselves right. I think they don't see anything on the table aside from the ACC. They're happy with what the ACC is doing with the TV deal, and again, they're just concerned with improving the program, weathering the storm of the sanctions, and moving forward.
Danny Money of CanesInSight.com, our guest here on the Sports Fix, talking Miami Hurricane football. And Danny, when a team goes 6-6 or 7-5, and you want to be optimistic, you say, look, this is a young team. If Miami were to go 6-6, 7-5 again this season, is this a year you could look at the squad and say, hey, expect better things in the future because this is a young football team?
I think so. And again, we have to see how it looks, what games are being won, how the games are being won, how the games are being lost to really determine that, instead of just saying, pure numbers. But I think so. What you really want to see is to see these young players perform well and show promise for the future. Last year you had Denzel Perryman and Chickalo. They should have been probably freshman All-Americans, at least Perryman. Chickalo is knocking on the door. So you saw the potential with those two players. With a big class like Haynes just signed, about 30-something players, you'd like to see maybe 10 freshmen meaningfully contribute, somewhat to how you had the Gators in 2007 when they won the championship. Or 2006, I'm sorry. You saw the freshmen contribute. You knew the future was bright. So something like that from the freshman class would really do wonders to easing the concerns of the fans. And also Stephen Morris, if they see some progress from him, some progress from the offensive line, that offensive line is all underclass, and they'd be coming back in full next year. So if you see some signs of life from the offense towards the end of the year, that'll be a great sign.
Over the last few years, a lot of Hurricane friends that I have been vocally upset about the offensive play calling and the type of system that the Hurricanes were running. Kind of almost seems that with Jed Fish now after his first season, that Hurricane fans kind of optimistic about where this offense is and the type of offensive scheme that he's brought to Miami. They feel like that things are looking up. Is that the case in actuality?
I think so. I mean, again, you're only as good as your last game, so if Stephen Morris goes out there and throws 3 INTs, they'll be calling for Fish's head. But you saw what happened to Ja'Cory Harris as far as protecting the ball. He was a turnover machine at the end of Mark Whipple's reign. Mark Whipple, now the QB coach for the Cleveland Browns. And last year, he really was very efficient. His numbers were actually top 10 throughout the year in the country. And statistically, he was one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the nation, which some people would have thought was unthinkable after seeing the Notre Dame game at the end of his junior year. So the progress of Ja'Cory Harris is encouraging, particularly just the way he was able to slow the game down, be more efficient, what the defense gives, and not just take shots like he did with Mark Whipple. So I think it's very encouraging. We had a 1,000-yard rusher for the first time in nearly a decade with Lamar Miller. So that's another encouraging sign of the Jed Fish offense. And really, I keep harping on it, but that offense did not have the ball very much through no fault of their own. They were protecting the ball, but the defense wasn't getting the ball back for them. So I think as you see an improved defense, this efficient offense that Jed Fish is trying to install, this varied offense, will really start to endear itself to Hurricane fans.
Hey, Danny, final question for you. You mentioned that game against Notre Dame. Well, they're on Miami's schedule again this season. I believe Notre Dame on one early line I saw was favored by 9, maybe 9.5 points over the Canes. Now, to a 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kid on this football team, now, if you were on the team here for the last couple of years, you know what it's like to lose to Notre Dame. Does that game mean as much to this generation of Canes as it does to my generation of Canes beating Notre Dame?
The players or the fans? Because I think the fans have a sense of history. Obviously, at this point, that's really all they have right now with the recent struggles. So I think the fans have a sense of history. Even if they were too young to maybe experience it firsthand, they know what kind of game it is. As far as the players, I don't think that's something that's on their minds. What might be on their mind is the fact that that's going to be a national game. I believe it's going to be a primetime game. So just that alone is going to get them psyched up and sort of show them the importance of the game. I don't think they're thinking about Jerry Faust and all these kind of things, but they know it's a big time game. They know it's a primetime game, and every game is important in college football. So I think they'll be properly amped up for sure.
Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, the best in the business when we cover Miami Hurricane sports, man. As always, appreciate your time, man, and look forward to talking to you next week, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. CanesInsight.